Hey everyone, welcome. This is Clear Vision Wednesday. My name is Trisha Kirby. I am guest hosting today, Clear Vision Wednesday, while our wonderful friend and colleague, Claudia Muhlenweg, is traveling. So we have such a special show for you today for this Christmas season, this holiday season, I should say. And we are welcoming what I consider to be a member of our Vision family, and that is Jennifer Swank. She has been a student. She has been a teacher for us in Naturally Clear Vision and some of our other programs, reminding students about nutrition and blood sugar balancing. And I can't say enough good things about her. I have my own clients who have sessions with me, or some of the students have sessions with her and tell me how amazing and wonderful she is. And the difference that she has made in their lives is just astounding. And they're really, really genuinely excited. So without further ado, we're going to go over some recipes today. We're going to talk about staying warm in the wintertime. We're going to talk a little bit about food and traveling and the holidays and ways to stay balanced with that. So I'm going to invite Jennifer on and then see that. Jennifer, I want you to, first of all, please introduce yourself to the listeners and give a little background to who you are. I know you're a metabolic coach, but you have such an interesting background beyond that as well. So please talk about that. I'm going to go ahead and highlight your video.
Oh, thank you, Trisha. And I'm so happy to be here. I love working with Trisha and Claudia, and I feel like I'm home. Welcome, everybody. I'm currently in Hawaii. Claudia had asked me if I could do this show, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be in Hawaii. But not everybody can be in Hawaii getting the warm breezes coming off the water, right? So I thought I would bring a little Hawaiian love to everybody here today. And so we are going to be making a winter soup. And food is I'm passionate about food. I've always been a foodie. And when I found out that I had an autoimmune disease of Hashimoto's, I had to change how I was eating because that worked well for me. So I'm a biochemist, and I had found out that I had lost all my energy. I went from being an Energizer bunny, like riding my bike, 200 miles a day, doing triathlons, to like barely being able to get off the couch. And I was able to change that feeling of feeling so fatigued and having brain fog and weight gain by changing my diet. And so that includes eating a whole food based diet. And I tend to switch between being whole food plant-based and whole foods with some other, fish or meat protein that's high quality from time to time. So we're all different. We all have to do what's right for our body. And so I hope to be able to do that today to show you that there's warming foods that are nutritious and cozy even during the holiday season that you can make for your families, that you can bring to parties, and that you don't have to feel left out if you've changed your diet, right? You can always bring something to share to a party, or you can just bring your own food, which is what I like. I like to bring my own food so that I make sure I have some, especially if it's a bigger party, and then I bring something to share. Some people will eat at home, but I feel like I'm being left out when I don't get to eat at a party and everyone else is eating. So it's what works for you, but these are some of the things that I like to do so that I can nourish my body and enjoy being in a community with people at the same time. So
Perfect. I love it. And I can't wait to see your first recipe. What are you going to share with us?
All right. Well, I was a biochemist in my, past life, and scientists love to cook. So I think that's, another thing. We like to mix things up, whether it's in a lab or it's in a kitchen. And I will be sharing my love of food today. So we're going to start off with a savory soup. So I cut everything up beforehand. And a lot of my cooking shows, I will show you exactly how I'm doing that. But this time I decided to not bring my knife. And then when I got here, I'm like, why didn't I bring my knife? I literally travel with my knife everywhere I go, but I was doing a lot of traveling this time, and I left it at home, and I now am using the knife here, and I didn't want to like hurt my finger on the show here, so I cut everything up at the beginning. So we're going to start off with you can take your soup pot, and then I like to saute with water instead of oil. Oil can oxidize, especially olive oil is, can be great, especially if it's cold pressed, but we want it more on salad dressings. And I just use water now. So we'll put some water in, and then I have half of a large red onion that I used here, and I'm using a purple onion because I love to use the colors of the rainbow in foods. And so I'm just going to pour the onion in, and then I'll turn around. I'll turn around and put it on the stove for it to start cooking. And then I'm going to add a little more water to the pot. So on the soup, I made like a mirepoix that has the onion, and then it has some carrot. So carrot is great for the eyes because it has beta carotene and vitamin D, but carrot for some people can spike people's blood sugar. So you have to do what's right for you, and maybe instead of leaving carrot completely out, use half a carrot in something. So for me, I'm going to add the carrot while the onion is starting to saute. And then I also have a couple ribs of celery here. I used one carrot, and I cut the pieces large instead of tiny. Like for myself, I would make them tiny, but my husband does not like the texture of celery. So I make big pieces, and then he can fish them out if he doesn't like them, right? So not everybody likes every ingredient. So that's, one way that we get around it. We get the flavor from the celery, but not the texture. And so pour that in. And then I also cut up a red bell pepper. So peppers are so high in vitamin C, and especially when they are raw, we won't have as much vitamin C in these because they're going to be cooked. But we have we'll get the beautiful color from those. And then I also sliced up some mushrooms. So not everybody can have mushrooms, so you can leave those out if those don't work for you. These are just some cremini mushrooms that I sliced in half and then sliced them again. And I'm going to leave those off to the side while that is cooking. And then I forgot something in the refrigerator. So I also have some Swiss chard. So I wanted to show you how I cut this. So I got some rainbow Swiss chard, and I love Swiss chard, especially the rainbow colors, because you can see the stems. They come in, there's orange and yellow and red, and it's almost like two vegetables. So I'll take and hold the stem of the Swiss chard, and then I pull my hand, and I end up with a Swiss chard spear. You can play with your kids with it. Or, they can be playing in the kitchen, right, with their Swiss chard spears. But then you can dice. I cut off the ends because those usually are a little browned unless you pick them directly from the garden. So I will then put those together and just do a quick dice of those. And so then those can get sauteed in with the other vegetables. And I will put those off to the side, and then I take all the leaves, and so I've cleaned everything. I clean those all in a pot, and then I, let them dry, and then I will stack them up, and then I'll roll them up. So I'll roll this up, and then I'll do like a little chiffonade. So this is like a little thing, and when you have a lot of them, they might not roll up so well, but then I'll just slice those so that you get these ribbons of Swiss chard. That just, it makes, they cook a lot faster, and they are just, they're nice and tender that way, and they're just like ribbons of green goodness. So I will put those off to the side and stir my veggies.
Okay, I have a question for our listeners, Jennifer.
Now, excuse me?
I have a question for our
Yes.
listeners. Is there an order? I noticed that you're doing things in a certain order. Is that for like speed of cooking or flavor, or what's the?
Yes, there is. So I usually will always do the onions first, and then because we are compressed in time, I'm kind of adding things all together, but I'll put the onions in and let them cook till they're translucent. Then I'll add the celery and the carrots, because those take a little longer to cook. And then I will add, after those have cooked for a couple minutes, then I will add the mushrooms, because those take a little longer time to cook, and they will release their some juices. And then and right now I was going to actually add some spices, because if you add a little salt at that time, then it also helps draw out some of the water. So I love an herb mare salt, and I didn't bring that one today. I ended up bringing some organic kelp. So being in Hawaii, being close to the ocean, it always is a reminder that it's good to add some kelp. It's a great way to get some iodine in your foods. We all need iodine for our thyroid, right? So the thyroid, the T4 hormone that we all need, whether you have problems with your thyroid or not, because every cell in your body needs thyroid. It needs 4 molecules of iodine to make up that T4 hormone that we use. So using kelp powder or adding some kombu, which is another piece of kelp, to beans or things like that when they're cooking, is a great way to get some iodine in. So I'm going to add some of that kelp powder. Then I also have some ground ginger here. You can use fresh ginger or ground ginger. I forgot to get my fresh ginger from the store yesterday after we landed in Hawaii. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to use some powder that I brought. So that's the thing. Sometimes we don't have all the ingredients that we call for in the recipe. We think we have them, so we can leave them out. Or like today, I'm adding in a half teaspoon of ginger, and then I'm going to add in the same amount of turmeric. And you can add, if you like things spicier, then you can add more, right? So I'm leaving them not as spicy, because not everybody likes a lot of spice in this.
Now,
And the thing about using ginger or turmeric is they have wonderful anti-inflammatory properties. So they're great to put in your foods and your beverages. And then I also have this Hawaiian rub. It comes from Salty Wahine. It was a woman who started a company. She worked at Enterprise rental cars for 20 years, and she would make up all these different rubs. And then all her family was telling her, you should start a company. So she started a company. She made up these rubs. Now her son and daughter work in the company. They sell them all around the world, and they have won many awards. So you never know. You can't, if you have an idea and something that you're good at, you can turn it into a dream, right? So her whole family works in the company now. And so this one has some Hawaiian salt, garlic, onion, black pepper, paprika. And so I'm just going to add like a teaspoon of that. So you don't have to add that in. I'm just telling you about this wonderful company while I'm here. You can bring a little piece of Hawaii to your home, whether it's snowing and cold, or you're in a warm climate. It just does make you feel like you're in that area, right? You're part of the islands today. I'm now going to add in the stems of the Swiss chard. And it's needing a little more water. I'm used to cooking on a gas stove instead of an electric stove. So sometimes we have to, learn from things that are around us. Also, when I was at the store the other day, I found some burdock root, and I was doing a cooking show last year and I wanted burdock root and I could not find it anywhere near me in California. And so when I saw burdock root yesterday, I was so excited. So I don't know if you can see this. So it has like a dark skin. And so I peeled it a little earlier, but it oxidizes quickly in the air. And so I just kind of wanted to show you, what it looked like. So I'm going to take and make little coins of this. And it's reminiscent of like parsnip or, something like that. And so you can put it in your soups and stews. It's particularly good for the liver.
That's so interesting. I've literally never seen that sold in a store, the burdock root. And I
know, you can get it in pieces dried, and that's a lot of times what I just do now. But when I saw it, I'm like, I am so excited for burdock. So since it's here, those of you who couldn't get it, you can add it to your soup. And if you can't, you can get it dried as a powder to add to things. But I'm super excited to have it, and I'm gonna add that to the soup too.
Yeah, I only know burdock root from Renee Casey, the ESSIAC formula, the tea that they use, the kind of anti-cancer. It's a anecdotal story.
Right. Yes, because it really is. The liver loves burdock. And then I have some red lentils that I rinsed, and I just had been soaking for the last couple hours. It's important to rinse them when you ever use beans or lentils and things like that, to make sure you're getting any dirt that might be off of them. And sometimes you'll find little tiny pebbles or rocks in beans. So that's why I have it here. And I'm just going to add that to our soup right now too, because it takes these lentils not that long to cook, about 10 minutes. It can be a little longer if you're at high altitude, but we just want them to end up being soft. You can use green lentils. They'll take a little longer to cook. You could use black lentils, and those will take even longer to cook. But any type of lentil. You could also use like mung dal, which is yellow. So lentils can spike some people's blood sugar, but they're not as starchy as some other beans. And so, you can try with a smaller amount and see what works for you. You can also add like riced cauliflower to this soup so that it stretches out. I couldn't find riced cauliflower yesterday when I was shopping. So today we're using lentils, but if you don't want to use lentils, you could just use the cauliflower, right? It could just be a vegetable soup, because I know some people are sensitive to legumes. So it's up to you.
And how long were you soaking the lentils for ahead of time?
I just did it for a couple hours, but these are so small. I don't think you probably even just, 15 minutes would probably be okay. But the longer you soak, right? If you soak these too much, they would probably disintegrate. But I think maybe 4 hours is the longest I would soak a red lentil. Other lentils, like the green lentils, I will actually sprout those sometimes and make lentil burgers with them. But yeah, these red lentils you don't need much time at all. And so then I also prepared a vegetable broth with all the stems and the peels of the onion. And so I just simmered that for, about 15 minutes before we started. And so I'm going to add that. It's about probably 4 cups. So I'm going to add 4 cups to the soup. And it was about 1 cup of lentils that I started. All right, and so then while that is cooking now, I'm gonna turn it. All right, we're going to end up moving over to making the cookie. And I just wanted to share a story before we get to the cookie. I love being in Hawaii. My husband and I will come at least once a year. And when we were here about 10 years ago, we were kayaking off the coast of Maui, and there was a guide and just my husband and I, and he took us to an area where we were hoping to see whales. And it was a beautiful day. There was beautiful blue sky and some poofy white clouds, and you could feel the warmth of the air on your skin, but there was a breeze, and so it just was wonderful. And you could see the beautiful blue water. And we came upon a dive ship, and there were some humpbacks that were very interested in the dive ship. And so they were swimming around the dive boat. And one humpback, who was probably 50 feet in front of us, breached out of the water. And then he breached up, and then he landed on his back to protect his organs, because that's what they'll do. And you could smell like the brininess. He had dislodged some barnacles and things that were on his skin, and you could smell the salty brininess of that and see the little foam in the water. And it was so amazing. And it's one memory that I always go to when I'm stressed about what, things, especially this time of the year, right? I'll go to that happy memory, that happy place of being there, and remember everything with all my senses. I was talking about the color, the feel of the skin, the smell, and it was so salty, you could kind of taste it in your mouth, right? So whenever we can go someplace and think of a positive memory, it helps put us in our parasympathetic state. It helps our eyes, right? And so I know sometimes cooking can be stressful, right? You forget an ingredient, or you have all these people coming over, but that's where you just take some time, put one hand over the other, breathe in through your nose, fill up your lungs, your diaphragm, and your belly with air, and then breathe out and just allow air to let everything go, right? Just you breathe in, filling up the lungs, the diaphragm, and the belly with air. And then you just let everything go and breathe out. So now on to our cookie recipe. So with these cookies, they're thumbprint cookies, and I called them Raspberry Visionary Bites. And this recipe is going to be in the newsletter, but it'll also be in the show notes today, but it'll be in Claudia's newsletter for December. So I'd like to start by making a flax egg. Some people are sensitive to eggs, and so making a flax egg is nice and easy. You don't have to worry about any inflammation that you might end up if you're eating eggs. Like for me, I found that eggs aren't an issue, but for some people they are. So, but these cookies have a flax egg in them. And I'm just going to look up the recipe real quick, because I like to change. I've never met a recipe that I could follow, but sometimes I do try to follow a recipe. So this calls for 4 tablespoons of flax and ground flax. And so I like to grind my own flax, and then store it in the refrigerator. But if you buy ground flax, then once you open the package, definitely store it in the refrigerator, or even better, the freezer. So this gets, I'm going to actually make a half batch of cookies for now. So, but the recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of flax. And then it calls for a half a cup of water. So I'm going to see, and I'm not measuring this because I know what the texture is going to feel like that. So for the recipe, 4 tablespoons of flax and a quarter cup of water. And then we may need a little extra. Like actually, I'm going to add one more. later. And then I'm also, why that sits off to the side, I'm going to make the raspberry jam. So we just need a pot, and you can take some frozen raspberries or fresh raspberries. So about a cup of those. And then we need 2 tablespoons of chia. That spoon is dirty now, so I'll have to use a different one. All right. 2 tablespoons of chia. So raspberries are great for your eyes, and they're a low glycemic fruit. It also needs 2 tablespoons of water. And then I'm using stevia for a sweetener. You could use Lohan or monk fruit. And I like to get them so they're either just stevia, just Lohan, or just monk fruit, because a lot of monk fruit and even stevia, they'll cut it with erythritol, and that can cause some gut issues for some people. I know it definitely bothers myself and my husband. So, and you can get it from micro ingredients or bulk supplements are 2 great places. I also will get stevia from Mountain Rose Herbs. So those are some, great places to get some. So I'm putting in 2 dropperfuls because raspberries aren't that sweet. And I'm also going to put in the juice of a lime. And in the recipe, it calls for a lemon, but I have lime today. So lime or lemon, having that citrus in there, it just gives such a fresh, bright flavor to it. And then this will just go on the stove, and I'll let it cook until it's kind of a jam-like consistency. And so it'll probably take about 4 to 6 minutes overall. All right, so then back to the cookie part, and stirring of the soup. Okay. So we have our flax egg in one bowl, and then the recipe calls for 2 cups of almond flour, but for myself, I'm cutting it in half. And I'm just gonna measure. Just gonna measure with this cup. It's not exact. That's the nice thing about these cookies. It doesn't have to be completely exact. So I have a cup of almond flour, but in the recipe it's 2 cups. And then we need some baking soda, and I use baking soda and cream of tartar instead of baking powder, because a lot of times there can be some corn starch that's in baking powder. And I also like to make sure that the baking soda will say it's gluten-free on it. For me, during my healing journey, I found that gluten and dairy and sugar really caused a lot of inflammation in my body. There was a point that my back was hurting, my knees were hurting, my feet, I had plantar fasciitis, my neck was hurting. And when I stopped eating all these inflammatory foods, that inflammation went down. So I know we're all different, but that is something that for my healing journey was very helpful. And then once I really started looking at eating low glycemic foods, things that don't spike my blood sugar, that helped with my eyes, and it helped with my hormones, because all our hormones are interconnected. Our sleep hormones, our thyroid hormones, our stress hormones, when your cortisol is high from stress, that affects your blood sugar too. So that's why remembering your happy memories is important, where you can just sit down every once in a while. And if you notice that you're feeling stressed, take those shoulders up, back, and down, right? And just let go and bring in that happy memory. It doesn't have to be for an hour. So I'm using a pinch here. The recipe calls for a, a quarter teaspoon of baking soda and a quarter teaspoon of cream of tartar.
Jennifer, I have a quick question. One of
Yes.
our Clear Vision Club members asked, and since you were mentioning the blood sugar, they
Yes.
asked, can you use date syrup as a sweetener?
You can use date syrup as a sweetener, but it is sweet. And so everybody's different. And that's where I like to, I don't have my continuous glucose monitor in now because it ended yesterday and I didn't bring one with me. But if you're, it's better than cane sugar. And that's where I started. I initially removed all cane sugar from my diet and I replaced it with maple syrup, honey, and date sugar or date syrup. But I found that for me, those things were still spiking my blood sugar and I had to move to different alternative sugars, which were the stevia, the monk fruit, and the lohan. And so I haven't tried allulose, but I've been hearing some good things about allulose also. So that's where I recommend getting a glucose monitor, even if you get one for a month. And I'm doing a blood sugar workshop on January 25th. So if anyone's interested on how to use a glucose monitor and the foods that are, just right for your body, and learning more about blood sugar, then send me a note and we can get you enrolled in the workshop. So back to the date sugar. Try it. It's a good place to go. But then, that's why I'm like, test your blood sugar and see if it's working for you. So back to the cookies. I have some vanilla here. It's a powdered vanilla. I like it. It's great to travel with. It doesn't have alcohol in it. And so I like to add that to the cookies. And then also add some cinnamon. And then whenever you're making something sweet, and both of these, the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon. I like to add a little salt. So it just brings out the flavors, whether it's a sweet or savory dish. And I know some people don't use any salt at all, so then you can just leave it out. And so then for this, we can just end up mixing up the almond flour, the baking soda, the cream of tartar, the vanilla, and the cinnamon. And then I can hear things cooking away, so I'm going to stir the raspberries. And then I'm going to turn that one down and just let it stay warm on the stove for a little longer. And then stir the soup.
Now, I noticed that you're using a lot of warming spices. Is that intentional?
It is intentional. So warming spices this time of the year, right, make you feel warm. And that's what we want. We want that coziness, the pumpkin pie spice, right, that has cloves and cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice. Those are all warming spices. And we use them this time of the year for a reason, right? Because they make us feel cozy. It reminds us of being in front of a fire if you're, in colder climates. But no matter where you are, those warming spices, if you grew up with those, they make us, it feels like home, right? So I'm going to mix in that flax egg so we can just mix up I'm going to mix up the egg and then I'm going to pour that in. Probably should have done it the other way around, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to pour it into the almond mixture. And if you can't have almonds, you can replace the almond flour with pumpkin seed flour. You can make your own. Like I will take pumpkin seeds and put them in a dry blender, a dry Vitamix blender. So Vitamix makes a wet blender top and then another base that's a dry blender in it. It will turn things into flours. So you could probably try to do it in a food processor too. Um, so when you're using the almond flour also, you want to make sure to get out any chunks that might be in there. All right, so these are looking good. I didn't turn on my oven ahead of time because I was thinking it would make it hot in here. I know those of you in warm climates, that's why we love to bake this time of the year, right? You turn on the oven and it warms up the whole kitchen and just it's nice and it's a fun thing to do with your family, right? Cooking with your family and then enjoying the treats that come out. And so these are treats that you know, shouldn't spike your blood sugar, but you know, with anything you have to test it out. So I'm just mixing it all together until all that flour gets incorporated. And you can use your hands and make sure. And what I like to do is see it holds together in a ball, right? That's what you want. If it's friable and there's pieces that are coming off, then you need to add a little more water. And if you feel it and it feels super tacky, like there's a lot of moisture in it, then you could add a little more almond flour. So you can just feel it, right? Just think, how does this feel? Is it holding together? Then it's good. If it's not, add more water. And if it's just sticky, then add a little more flour. So I'm going to take, and a lot of times I will use like a melon baller. That's like a tablespoon, but I'm going to take, and I'm going to take about a tablespoon of these and turn it into a ball. And then you can just, these are like the perfect consistency because when you roll it into a ball, you can see most of the cracks aren't there. There's a couple little cracks, but there's not a ton of cracks there and it's not falling apart, right? As I roll it, like if you roll it and it starts, all the dough starts to go everywhere, it needs a little more water. And so I'm just going to run through these real quick. And they're just great cookie. They are husband approved. I made these last couple weeks ago and I used, instead of raspberries, I used blueberries. And that was actually a great flavor too. So if you don't like raspberries, you can use blueberries. You could like here in Hawaii, I could use like mango, but tropical fruits tend to have a lot of sugar in them and they definitely spike my blood sugar. So I try to stay with the berries. Those are my berries: raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, even strawberries. That's what I like to go with. So here I ended up with eight cookies. So if you did the whole recipe, you would end up with about 16 cookies. Oh, and so I put my stuff to the side. I talked about the mushrooms, but I didn't put them in, right? So sometimes this is what happens. But the soup is still cooking, so I'm gonna add those mushrooms in for me. And then I also forgot the other stems of the Swiss chard. So that's the thing, is sometimes we forget it. You could leave it out or you could add in. And I just want to say, we don't have to be perfect about things, right? When we try to be perfect about things, that causes us stress. So if you forget something, just let it go. And that's what I really try to share with everyone. And I want to share this journey. I used to be such a stress case that everything had to be perfect. And that wasn't serving me, right? So now I just, when things aren't perfect, I laugh about it because I'm a laughter yoga leader. And I did want to share this real quick. And the reason why I did that is I had heard about laughter yoga when I was learning about brain retraining. And I tried it and I'm like, I don't know, it's not for me. It's a little weird, but I really wasn't playing all in. I like listened to the laughter exercises and I'm like, that's kind of strange. But then my husband and I were we were driving through Oregon and there was fire everywhere. And I could barely breathe. I felt anxious and I just didn't, I wasn't really sure what to do. I had such anxiety and I felt doom and gloom. And I put that laughter yoga tape on my iPad and, I streamed it and I did all the exercises. And then when I was done, I felt better. I didn't feel doom and gloom anymore. It was a little easier for me to breathe, even though I still had a mask on. Nothing had changed, but it was my mindset. And I really was able to laugh and get all the good hormones. You get a dose of dopamine, which, makes you motivated to do things, oxytocin, which makes you feel loved, serotonin, which we need to feel in a good mood and wards off against anxiety and depression, and then endorphins, which are our body's natural painkiller. So after that, I'm like, sign me up. So I just wanted to, while we're cooking, we can laugh and we can laugh at our mistakes. I'm like, I forgot those mushrooms. Do I leave them in? Do I pull them out? Or, I could just laugh at it, right? So we can laugh at those things. Oh, yeah. And I have time here. So I'm putting my time in too. So you can, if you have fresh thyme, which I did, you can put that in. And if you don't, you can add like a teaspoon of dried thyme and about a tablespoon of fresh thyme. So I'm going to take the cookies and I'm putting them here on a tray to go in the oven. And if you have parchment, you could put them on parchment paper. I am sadly out of parchment here. And so they're thumbprint cookies. So you can just take and put your thumb in each one and make a little well. And then as you do that, you can see it forms a little well there. And then it's not in the recipe because, I like to change things. I'm in Hawaii, so I decided I was going to put some macadamia nuts around these that are finely chopped. So this one has some macadamia nuts. And then I also have not everyone has the ability to get macadamia nuts, so you can use walnuts too. So I just made another little well in there. And then you can straighten it out on the side if you want. It doesn't matter. And then you can put that in your walnuts. Okay. And so I'm just going to quickly do those. How are we on time, Trisha?
You're doing fine.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I really am hungry now.
I know, right? I'm like, oh, I know what we're having for lunch. So the jam is right here. You can see it has a nice consistency, right? So I could go ahead and use this one, but I made some just in case this didn't set up. I made some that's in the refrigerator. I'll show you what that looks like. Right, so this one isn't as loose, right? It's sticking to the spoon. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. I just made this a couple hours ago too. So it's, I think it's going to be more about a half teaspoon size that fits in there. You can try, let's see. So that's well, then maybe that's about a teaspoon, but you can make it however you want. So you could have it coming out of the top, or you could just put a little dab in. I guess that one's still.
Now, is that something, could you take that as a potluck dish to a holiday potluck?
You could totally take this. This is a fabulous potluck dish, right? Because it's a cookie. You could take these to a cookie exchange. So like, I know my church is having a cookie exchange next week. And people don't, you could put on there that it's gluten, dairy free, which for people who, want to know that, or if you know people who are gluten and dairy free, then you could say, oh, I made these cookies. I think you'll love them. And there's something that you can have, because I know I used to really feel left out all the time. And I would just, I just go and, bring my own things now, like I'd mentioned earlier. But people don't have to know. A lot of times people don't want to try something because it's healthy, or they think it's you're eating something and they're not sure, but sometimes they'll ask about it and you can tell them, or you don't have to either. You would have to tell them if there's nuts on it, right? Like some people can't have nuts. I usually will bring something that has all the ingredients on it, because I have several friends who are celiac who can't have gluten, and others who are just, they have other health problems. So it's nice that you can bring these to a family gathering. You can bring them to a potluck at work, something at your church, or just something with your friends. And they're tasty. Like I said, they're husband approved. And I liked it with the raspberry when I did it with the blueberry the other night. They weren't as pretty. Didn't seem as festive with the red, but for those of you who celebrate Hanukkah, then the blueberry might actually be a choice that you would want to do. So you don't have to, but it's fun. And so these are going to go into the oven for like 10 to 15 minutes, kind of depends on your oven. I have it set at 350, and I kind of look at them, and a lot of times I'll take one out and I'll look at the bottom, and if it's kind of a golden brown on the bottom, or it starts to get a little golden on the edges, then I will say it is ready. I have one that needs a little more filling. Okay, put those in.
Now, once you've baked them, once they come out, is it better to store them in a little tin or put them in the refrigerator or the freezer, or how do you?
That is a fabulous question. I would store them in the refrigerator because of the raspberry that's in them. Then they could get moldy over time. So store them in the refrigerator, and then you can take them out and you can stick them in, like if you have a little toaster oven, you can stick them in there to warm them up, or you could freeze them also, and then maybe don't cook them for quite as long, and then you could put them back into the refrigerator or into the oven. Or I think you could probably freeze these and then just cook them as you need them. Also, that would work. All right. So any other questions regarding the cookies?
We're good.
All right. Okay, kind of clean up my spot here. Stir soup, which those mushrooms are cooking up, and the tips of the chard look nice. So let's move on to, I have a warming drink, and it's in that 7 energizing drinks instead of coffee. I don't know if Trisha, oh, I was gonna send it. I was gonna send that to you. But it'll be in the show notes. Everyone, you can sign up. And then actually before we leave today, if there's time, I'll put it in there. But there's 7 drinks that are great. Some are more convoluted and take more ingredients, and some are just one ingredient. And most of them are all warming, but you can also, they're all warming, but you could also make them as like a cool drink too, if you're in those warm climates this time of the year. So on this one, we're going to take a blender. You don't have to use a blender, you can use a mug. And especially if you have one of those frothers, or you can use a frother. And what it does, it just makes it like a little frothy, more latte-like. But it calls for some coconut butter. So this is the Artisana brand, and this is a nice travel size. So it calls for about a tablespoon of that. So you can get Artisana in a jar. If you don't want to use any coconut butter, because coconut butter can be higher in saturated fat, you can leave that out. There's cashew, you could use cashew powder that you can get. I like that too. So I'm just going to put like a tablespoon of that in. And then I'm using cordyceps mushroom powder today. Cordyceps mushroom powder is a medicinal mushroom, and it gives people a lot of energy when they have cordyceps. So it's a great one. So I'm going to put that in. It's about a half teaspoon of all these ingredients. So a half teaspoon of the cordyceps. And then I'm going to put in, I was also going to make a nettle tea. So I love nettles. Nettles are great for your bones. They have a lot of different minerals in there that are really good for the bones. So I was going to use that for the base. So I'm just going to use like a teaspoon of nettle and a strainer. And so see, I have this fine mesh strainer. I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then I have some hot water that I had made earlier. Okay. And then I'm just going to let that steep while I put in the other ingredients. So usually when you make a nettle tea, you let it steep for 5 to 10 minutes. And then, so I'm going to use some ground ginger again, those warming spices that are anti-inflammatory, right? So about half a teaspoon of that. And you can use less if you don't, or you can leave these out if that seems too strong for you. I like a, like golden milk latte. That's kind of what this reminds me of, the turmeric. And then I'm also going to add some maca. So maca helps our hormones, especially like progesterone. So I'm going to put a half teaspoon of maca in. And maca kind of can give things like a little butterscotchy flavor. So it gives a nice flavor. And then I'm going to add some fennel powder. So fennel is in a lot of like Indian cuisines, and like if you go to an Indian restaurant, sometimes they'll have like fennel as you're leaving. It's a good digestive. So I'm going to add a little of that fennel powder. And then you could add cacao to this. And I'm going to add some vanilla. So just like a quarter teaspoon of that powdered vanilla in there. And then I'm going to let that steep a little more. I'm going to put our greens in our soup so that those can cook. I like to put them in at the end because I like the greens to just be cooked to the point that they're tender before I serve them. Okay. And so then let's say we've steeped for 5 minutes. Let's put our liquid in, put our top on, and hopefully this austerizer blender will be nice to me. Well, this is like the laughter cooking show. Like, see, when something goes wrong, we just laugh about it. So I plugged it in and it started twirling around. All right. And so it blended up, and let me grab a clear mug so that you could see it. So it's just like a cozy wintry drink. So if you have, and you could also add coconut milk if you didn't have that coconut butter. So cheers.
Oh my God, that looks so tasty. All right, I have a question. Can you,
Yes.
does that like give you energy where you would want to not drink it at nighttime before bed? Or is it okay at night?
I would say at nighttime, I would use a different mushroom instead of cordyceps. You could use reishi or chaga. Lion's mane is good for the brain. I probably wouldn't use that one at night either, too, because I think it's better for clear thinking. So I would say a nighttime one, use a different mushroom like chaga or reishi. I've never had a problem with it like being like caffeine, but when we're trying to get to sleep, right, and get to where we're calming down at night, then it probably would not be my my go-to mushroom. This one I would use more in the morning, like instead of coffee, right? It's the perfect one. It gives you some energy, and at night either leave it out or switch it off. Switch it out for a chaga or reishi. All right, so so there's our drink right there. I'm going to ladle up the soup so that you can see it. And I guess why it's hard to actually show this. I don't know if you can see it. So it's like a brothy, but if you like a more hearty soup, you could take half of this out and you could blend it up so that it seems more creamy, or you could completely blend the whole thing so that it's a blended soup. I love blended soups, but I also like them like this too. So whatever is your preference, it's nice and versatile. And then the cookies are still in the oven, but I'm going to take them out so that you can see what they look like. They need a little more time, but there's the cookies.
Those are beautiful.
And they need a little more time because as I'm lifting them up, they're a little friable, but they're delicious. I know my husband and I are going to enjoy them later today. So what questions do we have?
Everybody on YouTube's pretty quiet, and you were answering questions as we went along, so we've been doing really well. I would like to ask you if you can talk a little bit about some of the things that you offer people if they want to connect with you further, because you are literally, we consider you part of our vision family, as I said before. Absolutely adore you. You are brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And anyone who connects with you is benefited, every single person. So talk a little bit about what you have to offer.
Oh yes, and there's a lot that we're offering this month. So I work with my business partner Jennifer Whitmire. We're known as the Gen Twins. So we met when we were studying nutritional endocrinology together. I was already a health coach and she was already a master herbalist. And we had so many things in common, including our autoimmune disease. She had hyperthyroid and I had hypothyroid. But we have a passion for sharing food. We both love to cook. She has a farm. We love to share our knowledge that we have on, our metabolic health, because so many people are having problems with their metabolic health these days, whether it's your thyroid or you're having problems with your insulin resistance or your hormones. And so we have a community now that we just started this last month, and we're offering a cooking show, which we had last Saturday. But if you join, you get into the membership area. You can re-watch the program, and there we had some almond joy bites, some lime cheesecake, avocado bites that were delicious, and some coconut macaroons. I made a delicata squash salad, and she made two different types of lasagna, and we had so much fun. And then this Thursday, so tomorrow, there's an herbal workshop that Jen is doing, and she's is making some hydrating salve with herbs, like for your hands, some peppermint chapstick, some herbal teas, and some other really amazing things. And then we're having a laughter yoga meditation class that's on the solstice. So I just thought that was a great time of the year to spend time in community, laughing together, bringing joy into our lives, and then at the same time, de-stressing from the holidays. And then we have a vision board, creating your vision for 2025, that we're doing on December 30th. So it's exciting. We're offering it for $20 and for the month of December. And then we have a membership. If you do it, it's $39 monthly, or if you do it for a year, you get 2 months free for $390. So it's fun. We love sharing our joy for food and our zest for life, and helping, bring those in community together, right? Because sometimes when you're trying new things in your life, maybe the people around you aren't as positive about the changes that you're doing. And so it's nice to be in community with people who have the same goal.
Absolutely. I love that. Totally love it. And I could not agree more with being in community with people who have the same goals. Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, I can't thank you enough for joining us, especially from joining us on your vacation from Hawaii and showing us all these great recipes. The only downside is I don't get to eat them.
I know. I wish I could put them, one of these days we'll be able to just send them through, right?
Yes, yes, I would love that. So any last words you want to say to our audience before we end the live stream?
I want to wish you happy holidays, a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, and a Mele Kalikimaka from Hawaii.
Love it. I love it. Yay. All right.
Yay.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we wish you well. We're going to end the live stream and go over to our Clear Vision Club membership. Subscribe and join us again for Clear Vision Wednesday. We are here for your visual health, and